The Nashville sky had turned an ominous shade of charcoal gray by 4 in the afternoon, and Jake Morrison could feel the change in air pressure settling deep in his bones. He'd lived in Tennessee his entire 42 years, and he knew that particular heaviness in the atmosphere meant trouble was coming. Thunder rumbled somewhere beyond the distant hills as he wiped his grease-stained hands on an already dirty rag, surveying the pristine workshop around him. Elite Auto Works occupied a converted warehouse in the upscale Green Hills neighborhood, where Nashville's wealthy brought their luxury vehicles for meticulous care. The space gleamed with polished concrete floors, state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment, and walls lined with awards and certifications. Jake had been instrumental in building this reputation over 15 years of dedicated service, rising from apprentice to master mechanic to shop foreman. His co-worker, 26-year-old Tommy Brennan, was securing the last vehicle, a midnight blue Porsche Cayenne, on the lift as the first fat raindrops began pelting the skylights above. The rhythmic ping, ping, ping echoed through the cavernous space. "Looks like we're closing just in time," Tommy said, his youthful face breaking into a grin. "My girlfriend's been texting me all afternoon about dinner plans." Jake smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Go ahead and take off, kid. I'll lock up." "You sure, boss? I can stay and help." "Nah, I've got it. Tell Rebecca I said hello." Tommy didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his jacket from the break room and headed out into the growing storm, leaving Jake alone in the workshop. The overhead fluorescent lights hummed quietly as Jake made his final rounds, checking that all equipment was powered down, tools were organized, and the security system was armed for the weekend. Derek Hastings, the owner of Elite Auto Works, had left hours earlier for what he called an important business meeting, though everyone knew that meant drinks at the country club. Derek was the kind of man who wore his wealth like armor. Designer suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent, a Rolex that caught the light with every gesture, and a perpetual expression of vague dissatisfaction, as if the world persistently failed to meet his exacting standards. Jake had learned to navigate Derek's mercurial moods over the years. Show up early, work late, never complain, and above all, follow the rules. Derek loved his rules. There were protocols for everything: how to greet customers, which cleaning products to use, what color pens were acceptable for paperwork. The rulebook he'd created was 3 inches thick and updated quarterly. But Jake didn't mind. The job paid well, better than most mechanic positions in Nashville, and it allowed him to support his daughter, Emma, who was in her second year at Vanderbilt University studying engineering. His ex-wife, Patricia, had remarried 5 years ago and moved to Atlanta, leaving Jake and Emma to forge their own tight bond. Everything he did, every extra hour he worked, was for her future. The rain was coming down in sheets now, hammering against the metal roof with increasing intensity. Jake was double-checking the security panel when he heard it. A vehicle pulling into the parking lot, its engine sputtering and coughing in distress. He frowned and moved to the front window, peering through the downpour. A red Ford F-150, maybe 15 years old, had pulled up to the garage door. The truck looked well-maintained despite its age, with a few dents and scratches that spoke of years of honest use. The engine made a concerning knocking sound before dying completely, and, for a moment, the vehicle just sat there in the pelting rain. Then the driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. Even through the rain-blurred window, Jake recognized her immediately. The distinctive red hair, though now plastered to her head by the downpour, the confident way she moved even in obvious distress, and when she turned toward the building, those unmistakable features that had graced countless album covers and television screens. Reba McEntire was standing in his parking lot in the middle of a thunderstorm, and her truck was dead. Jake's first instinct was to help. It was ingrained in him, part of who he was. But Derek's voice echoed in his mind. After hours is after hours, Morrison. We're not a charity. If someone shows up when we're closed, they can call a tow truck like everyone else. Time is money, and we don't work for free. He watched as Reba tried her phone, her expression growing more frustrated. The rain was relentless now, and she was getting soaked. She looked around the empty parking lot, then back at her truck, then toward the building where Jake stood watching. Their eyes met through the window. For a moment, Jake stood frozen. Decades of following rules warring with basic human decency. This wasn't just anyone. This was Reba McEntire, a Tennessee legend, someone who represented everything good about Nashville. But more than that, she was a person in trouble, standing alone in a dangerous storm. The decision crystallized in an instant. Jake strode to the control panel and hit the button to raise the main garage door. The heavy metal rattled upward, revealing the workshop's warm interior light to the storm-darkened evening. He stepped out into the rain, immediately soaked by the downpour, and jogged to where Reba stood by her truck. "Ma'am, let's get you and your truck inside before this storm gets worse," he shouted over the thunder. Relief flooded her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't know what I was going to do. My phone has no signal, and this weather, we'll figure it out. Let me hook you up to the tow dolly, and we'll get the truck inside where I can take a look." Working together in the rain, they managed to get the F-150 positioned. Jake efficiently connected the tow equipment, a skill honed by thousands of hours of practice, and within 10 minutes, they had the truck safely inside the workshop. He lowered the garage door, cutting off the sound of the storm to a muted roar. Reba stood dripping on the pristine floor, looking simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. Up close, without stage makeup or professional lighting, she looked like any woman in her late 60s. Beautiful in an authentic way, with laugh lines around her eyes and a warmth that seemed genuine rather than performed. "I am so sorry for this," she said, wringing water from her hair. "I was heading home from the studio when the truck just started making this awful noise. And then it died completely. I saw your sign and just prayed someone would still be here." Jake grabbed a couple of clean shop towels from a cabinet and handed her one. "No need to apologize, ma'am. That's what we're here for. Well, technically we're closed, but I couldn't just leave you out there in this weather." She dried her face and hands, her eyes scanning the immaculate workshop. "This is a beautiful shop. You run this place?" "I'm the head mechanic. Been here 15 years. Name's Jake Morrison." "Reba McEntire," she said, extending her hand with a slight smile. "But I guess you already knew that." Jake shook her hand, struck by the normalcy of the gesture. "Yes, ma'am. My daughter's a huge fan. She's got all your albums. Well, on her phone now, I guess. Nobody buys CDs anymore." Reba laughed, a genuine sound that echoed pleasantly in the workshop. "Tell me about it. The music business has changed more in the last 15 years than it did in the previous 50. How old's your daughter?" 20. She's studying engineering at Vanderbilt. "A smart one. You must be proud." "Every single day," Jake said, and meant it. "Now, let's see what's going on with your truck." He moved to the F-150 and popped the hood, the familiar ritual of diagnosis settling over him like a comfortable jacket. The engine bay was cleaner than he'd expected for a truck this age. Someone had taken care of this vehicle. He grabbed a flashlight and began his inspection, his experienced eyes cataloging potential issues. "Has it been making any unusual sounds before today?" he asked, his voice slightly muffled as he leaned into the engine compartment. "A little rattling for the past week or so, but nothing serious. I kept meaning to bring it in, but you know how it is. Busy schedule, and the truck kept running, so I kept putting it off." "That's how it usually goes," Jake said, mentally noting the worn timing chain he could already see. "When's the last time you had the timing chain replaced?" "The timing chain? I don't think I ever have. I bought this truck used about 8 years ago." Jake straightened up, wiping his hands. "Well, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I know exactly what's wrong. The timing chain is stretched beyond spec, and it's starting to jump teeth on the gears. That's the knocking sound you heard. And the bad news? The bad news is if it jumps too many teeth or breaks completely, it can cause catastrophic engine damage. You're lucky it died when it did, and luckier still that you made it here before that happened." Reba let out a long breath. "How long to fix it?" Jake did the mental calculations. Timing chain replacement on this model was a solid 6 to 8 hour job. Maybe more if there were complications. "If I start now and everything goes smoothly, I could have you back on the road by midnight. Maybe sooner." "Now? But you're closed. I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Jake pulled his phone from his pocket and texted Emma, staying late at the shop to help someone with an emergency repair. "Don't wait up. Love you." Her response came almost immediately. "Be safe, Dad. Love you too." "Let me get started," Jake said, already moving to gather the tools he'd need. "There's a break room through that door with a coffee maker, snacks, and a couch. You're welcome to wait there where it's comfortable." "Can I help?" Reba asked. "I don't know much about engines, but I can hand you tools or something." Jake paused, surprised by the offer. Most luxury car owners treated him like he was invisible, a service they paid for without acknowledgement. "Sure, if you want. Fair warning, it's going to get messy. I grew up on a ranch in Oklahoma," Reba said, rolling up her sleeves. "I've been messy before." So they worked together as the storm raged outside. Jake explained each step as he went, and Reba proved to be an attentive student, asking intelligent questions and anticipating which tools he'd need next. They fell into an easy conversation, the kind that flows naturally between people engaged in shared purpose. She told him about growing up in Chalky, Oklahoma, one of 4 children in a family that struggled but loved fiercely, about learning to sing in school and at local events, never imagining it would become a career, about the early years in Nashville when success felt impossible, the breakthrough moments, and the strange reality of fame. "People see the awards and the sold-out shows," she said, handing him a socket wrench, "but they don't see the 200-day tours, the hours on buses, the time away from family. My kids grew up with a mother who was often a voice on the phone instead of a presence at the dinner table." Jake nodded, carefully removing the old timing chain. "I can relate to that feeling. When Emma was younger, I worked 2 jobs trying to keep up with bills after the divorce. I'd see her maybe an hour a day on weekdays. She's forgiven me for it, but I haven't quite forgiven myself." "Did the marriage end because of the work?" "No," Jake said after a moment. "It ended because I married the wrong person for the right reasons. Patricia was pregnant, and I thought doing the right thing meant getting married. Turns out, 2 people who don't really love each other just make each other miserable, even with good intentions." "That's wisdom hard-earned," Reba observed. "You remarry?" "Never found the time or the right person. Emma's been my focus." He smiled slightly, "though she keeps telling me I need to get out there, as she puts it. Says she's worried I'm lonely. Are you?" Jake considered the question as he worked. "Sometimes, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I've got work I'm good at, a daughter I'm proud of, and a life that makes sense. That's more than a lot of people can say." 3 hours passed in focused work and comfortable conversation. The storm continued its assault on the building, occasional lightning flashes visible through the high windows. Jake had just finished installing the new timing chain and was beginning the reassembly when the main door burst open with enough force to echo through the entire workshop. Derek Hastings stood in the doorway, his expensive suit rumpled and his face flushed with alcohol and anger. His eyes swept the scene. The disassembled truck, the tools scattered around, Jake with grease up to his elbows, and Reba McEntire standing there in her still damp clothes, a wrench in her hand. What the hell is going on here? Derek's voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of calm that preceded an explosion. Jake straightened slowly, his heart sinking. "Mr. Hastings, I didn't expect you back tonight." Clearly, Derek's eyes narrowed. "Who authorized this work? Why is the shop open after hours? And why are you working on—" He paused, recognizing Reba, and his expression shifted to something calculating. "Ms. McEntire." What an unexpected surprise. Reba stepped forward, her voice friendly but firm. "Mr. Hastings, I presume you're the owner. Your mechanic here has been an absolute lifesaver. My truck died in that storm, and Jake kindly agreed to help me even though you were closed. I can't thank him." "He kindly agreed," Derek interrupted, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "to violate multiple company policies. Jake, a word. In my office. Now." "Mr. Hastings, if I could just explain," Jake began. "Now, Morrison." The walk to Derek's office felt like a march to execution. The office was on a mezzanine level overlooking the shop floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that allowed Derek to survey his domain. It was furnished with the same expensive taste as everything else he owned. Leather chairs, a mahogany desk, framed photos of Derek with various celebrities who'd brought their cars to the shop. Derek closed the door and rounded on Jake immediately. "What part of after hours is after hours, did you not understand?" "Sir, she was stranded in a dangerous storm." "I don't care if she was the Queen of England. You don't open this shop without authorization. You don't work on vehicles without going through proper channels. You don't make decisions about my business without consulting me." Jake forced himself to remain calm. "You were unreachable. Your phone went to voicemail. A person needed help, and I helped them. That's what we do. What we do is run a business, not a charity." Derek's face was reddening. "Do you know how many people would love to take advantage of bleeding hearts like you? Oh, I'm stranded. Help me for free. And you just rolled over. I wasn't planning to charge her for the labor. But the parts, you weren't planning to charge her?" Derek's laugh was harsh. "That's not your decision to make. Every hour of labor, every part, every service we provide is priced according to a system I created. You don't get to give away my profit margin because you want to play hero." Through the office window, Jake could see Reba standing by her truck, her expression troubled as she watched the confrontation unfold. "Mr. Hastings, with all due respect, this is a human being who needed help. Sometimes being a decent person matters more than policy." "Decent?" Derek's voice rose. "You want to talk about decent? You violated my trust. You broke rules that every employee here knows are non-negotiable. You put this business at legal risk. What if she'd gotten hurt while in the shop after hours? What if something had gone wrong with the repair? We have insurance and liability protocols for a reason. Nothing went wrong. That's not the point." Derek slammed his hand on the desk. "The point is, you think you're special. You think 15 years of service gives you the right to make executive decisions. Well, it doesn't. You're an employee, Morrison. A good one, I'll grant you, but still an employee. And employees who can't follow simple rules don't work here." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Jake stared at his boss, trying to process what he was hearing. "You're firing me? For helping someone?" "I'm firing you for insubordination, for violation of company policy, for making unauthorized business decisions, and for showing a fundamental lack of respect for the rules that make this establishment successful." Derek's voice had gone cold now, businesslike. "Clean out your locker. I'll have your final check mailed to you. You have 15 minutes to leave the premises." Jake felt the world tilting beneath him. 15 years. 15 years of perfect attendance, of overtime without complaint, of building this shop's reputation with his skill and dedication. Gone in an instant because he'd helped someone in need. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. 14 minutes now. Jake turned and walked out of the office, his legs feeling disconnected from his body. The workshop seemed different now, hostile somehow. All those tools he'd organized, the systems he'd created, the young mechanics he'd trained. None of it mattered. He was out. Reba met him at the bottom of the stairs, her face stricken. "Jake, I am so sorry. I heard what he said. That's not right. Let me talk to him. I'll explain." "It won't help," Jake said quietly. "He's made up his mind." That's how Derek operates. Once he's decided something, that's it. "But you're being punished for helping me. I can't let that stand. Let me—" "Ms. McEntire, I appreciate it, but please don't make this worse. The last thing I need is for Derek to accuse me of using you to get my job back. Just let it go. At least let me pay you for the work you've done. The work isn't finished. The truck needs another few hours." Jake glanced at the partially reassembled engine. "Tommy Brennan will be in tomorrow. He's a good kid, still learning, but he can finish the job. Tell Derek to have Tommy complete it." He moved to his locker in the break room, aware of Reba following him. His hands moved automatically, pulling out the few personal items he'd accumulated over 15 years. A photo of Emma at her high school graduation. A coffee mug she'd given him that read, "World's Best Dad." A spare work shirt. Some hand lotion for the constant dryness that came with working with solvents. It fit into a small cardboard box. "Jake, please. There has to be something I can do." He turned to face her, and she must have seen something in his expression because she stepped back slightly. "You want to do something? Go home to your family? Enjoy your success? Live your life? That's what people like me work for. So people like you can have their trucks fixed and continue doing important things. I'm just a mechanic, Ms. McEntire. I fix cars. That's all I've ever been, and that's all I'll ever be." "That's not true." "It is true." His voice was tired now, drained of anger. "You'll forget about me by next week. This'll be a funny story you tell at parties. Remember that time my truck broke down and the mechanic got fired for helping me? And that's fine. That's how the world works. But please, don't pretend this is anything other than what it is. You're a celebrity, I'm nobody, and tomorrow you'll still be famous and I'll still be unemployed." He picked up his box and walked toward the exit. Derek was coming down from his office, a satisfied smirk on his face. 15 minutes, Morrison. I'm impressed by your efficiency." Jake stopped, turned, and looked Derek in the eye. "You know what the saddest part of this is? I actually believed you were better than this. 15 years, and I never saw the real you until tonight. The real me is a successful businessman who doesn't let emotions override logic. Maybe you should try it sometime." "Yeah," Jake said softly. "Maybe I should." He walked out into the night. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and cool, the parking lot littered with leaves and small branches. His truck, a beat-up Chevy Silverado that had seen better days, sat in the employee section, looking as tired as he felt. Jake set the box in the passenger seat and just sat there for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Through the workshop windows, he could see Reba talking animatedly to Derek, her hands gesturing. Derek's expression was impassive, unmoved. After a few minutes, Reba emerged from the building, spotted Jake's truck, and walked over. He rolled down his window. "He won't budge," she said, and there were tears of frustration in her eyes. I offered to pay for everything, to cover any liability concerns. Even offered to do a promotional event for the shop for free. He doesn't care. He says it's about principle. It's about control, Jake said. But thank you for trying. I'm going to make this right somehow. I don't know how yet, but I will. Jake managed a tired smile. You're a good person, Ms. McEntire. Your music brings joy to millions of people. That's enough. You don't need to save one unemployed mechanic, too. What will you do? Same thing people have done since the beginning of time. I'll figure it out. I always do. He started his truck and pulled out of the Elite Auto Works parking lot for the last time, watching in his rearview mirror as Reba stood there in the employee parking area, looking lost and angry and sad all at once. The drive home took 20 minutes through empty streets, still wet from the storm. Jake lived in a modest house in East Nashville, a neighborhood that had gentrified rapidly over the past decade, though his street had largely been spared the worst of the boutique shops and overpriced condos. It was a simple 3-bedroom ranch he'd bought 15 years ago, back when the neighborhood was affordable. He pulled into his driveway and sat there for a long moment before getting out. The house was dark except for the porch light Emma had left on for him. She was probably asleep by now. She had a study group early tomorrow morning. Inside, the house was quiet and familiar. Photos of Emma at various ages lined the hallway. The living room still had the same furniture he'd bought after the divorce, worn but comfortable. This was his sanctuary, the place he'd built for his daughter. And now he had to figure out how to keep it without steady income. He dropped the box on the kitchen table and opened his laptop. The screen's glow harsh in the dark room. A quick search showed numerous mechanic positions in Nashville, but most paid significantly less than what he'd been making at Elite Auto Works. He'd been at the top of his field, working with luxury vehicles, commanding premium rates. Starting over would mean a substantial pay cut. The financial calculations ran through his mind like a diagnostic scan. Mortgage, utilities, Emma's tuition. He had some savings, but not enough to coast for long. 3 months, maybe 4 if he was careful. After that, he'd have to start making hard choices. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Reba. Tommy gave me your number. I hope that's okay. I just wanted to say again how sorry I am and how grateful I am for your help. You're a good man, Jake Morrison. The world needs more people like you. Jake stared at the message for a long time before typing a response. Thank you. Good luck with your truck. I hope Tommy does a good job finishing up. He set the phone down and sat in the dark kitchen of his house, listening to the refrigerator hum and the old clock on the wall tick away the seconds of his new, uncertain future. Tomorrow, he would tell Emma. Tomorrow, he would start making plans, sending out resumes, calling old contacts. Tomorrow, he would begin the work of rebuilding. But tonight, he just sat in the dark and wondered if doing the right thing was supposed to hurt this much. Jake woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window and the disorienting sensation of having overslept. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand, squinting at the screen. 7:30. On a normal Saturday, he'd have been at the shop for over an hour already, preparing for the day's work. But there was no shop anymore. No work. No routine. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, the events of the previous night playing through his mind like a fever dream. Had he really been fired for helping someone? Had 15 years of loyalty and dedication really counted for nothing? The smell of coffee drifted into his bedroom. Emma was awake. Jake forced himself out of bed, pulled on sweatpants and a t-shirt, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. His daughter sat at the table, her laptop open, a cup of coffee steaming beside her. She looked up as he entered, and he saw the concern in her eyes. "Morning, Dad." You got in late last night. How was the emergency repair? This was the moment he'd been dreading. Emma worked so hard at Vanderbilt, maintained a 3.8 GPA, while juggling a part-time job at the campus library. She was on track to graduate with honors, maybe even land an internship at one of Nashville's engineering firms. The last thing she needed was to worry about money or her father's employment. But he'd never lied to her, and he wasn't about to start now. "It went fine," he said, pouring himself coffee. But there were complications afterward. Emma's eyes narrowed. What kind of complications? So he told her. Everything. The storm. Reba McEntire's truck dying. His decision to help. Derek's unexpected arrival. And the firing that followed. Emma listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker as the story progressed. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment before saying quietly, "That absolute piece of garbage." "Emma?" "No, Dad. That's what he is. You gave that man 15 years of your life. You worked holidays, came in early, stayed late. You trained half his staff. You built that shop's reputation. And he fires you for being a decent human being?" Her voice was shaking with anger. "We should sue him. There have to be laws against wrongful termination. Tennessee is an at-will employment state. He can fire me for any reason that's not discriminatory. Then we'll go to the media. We'll—" "Emma." Jake set down his coffee and took his daughter's hand. "I appreciate you being angry on my behalf. Really, I do. But fighting this won't change anything. Derek owns the shop. He makes the rules. All fighting back would do is make me look bitter and vindictive. And that'll make it harder to find new work. So he just gets away with it? That's how the world works sometimes. The people with money and power make the rules, and people like me follow them or suffer the consequences." Emma pulled her hand back, her expression troubled. "I hate that you believe that. I don't believe it. I know it. There's a difference." She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What are you going to do?" "Find another job. I've already got some leads." It was only a small lie. He had bookmarked some job postings which technically counted as leads. "I've been doing this for 25 years. Someone will hire me." "What about money? Tuition?" "I've got savings. We'll be fine." "Dad, we'll be fine," he repeated more firmly. "This isn't your problem to solve. Your job is to focus on school and your future. My job is to figure out the adult stuff. Deal?" Emma didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Deal. But if things get tight, I can take next semester off. Pick up more shifts at—" "Absolutely not. You're not interrupting your education because of this." End of discussion. They spent the rest of breakfast in relative silence, each lost in their own thoughts. After Emma left for her study group, Jake settled at the kitchen table with his laptop and began the tedious process of updating his resume. It had been 15 years since he'd looked for work. His LinkedIn profile was outdated, his references were old, and the job market had changed dramatically. Most applications were online now, filtered through algorithms that screened for keywords. His phone number on some old resumes wasn't even in service anymore. He spent the morning applying to positions, auto repair shops across Nashville, dealerships, even some corporate fleet maintenance jobs. Each application required a cover letter, resume adjustment, and several rounds of online forms. By noon, he'd submitted applications to 12 different places and felt like he'd run a marathon. His phone rang just after 1 o'clock. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Morrison? This is Jennifer Walsh. I'm calling from—" "Listen, whatever you're selling, I'm not interested." "I'm not selling anything, sir. I'm an attorney with Walsh & Associates. I'm calling on behalf of a client who wishes to speak with you regarding an incident that occurred last night at Elite Auto Works." Jake's stomach dropped. Derek was suing him. Of course, it wasn't enough to fire him. Now the vindictive bastard wanted to. "My client is Reba McEntire, Mr. Morrison. She's asked me to arrange a meeting with you this afternoon, if you're available. Would 2 o'clock work?" Jake sat down heavily in his kitchen chair. "A meeting? What kind of meeting?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details over the phone. Ms. McEntire prefers to speak with you in person. The meeting would take place at your residence, if that's acceptable. She wants to respect your privacy." "My residence? How does she even know my—" "Public records, Mr. Morrison. Everything is public records these days. Is 2 o'clock convenient?" Jake looked around his modest kitchen, the slightly outdated appliances, the water stain on the ceiling he kept meaning to fix. This was absurd. Reba McEntire, country music superstar, wanted to come to his house for a meeting? Sure. 2 o'clock is fine. Excellent. Thank you for your time, Mr. Morrison. The line went dead, leaving Jake staring at his phone in confusion. What could Reba possibly want? To apologize again? To offer him money? Like some kind of charity case? The thought made his jaw tighten. He didn't need pity, especially not from celebrities who probably spent more on shoes than he made in a month. But curiosity won out over pride. He spent the next 45 minutes cleaning his already clean house, straightening throw pillows, wiping down counters, vacuuming floors. At 1:55, he was pacing in his living room, alternating between looking out the window and checking his phone. At exactly 2 o'clock, 3 black Cadillac Escalades pulled up to his curb in a neat line. Jake's first thought was that it looked like a presidential motorcade. His second thought was that his neighbors were definitely watching. Mrs. Chen from across the street was already on her porch, pretending to water plants while staring openly. The Kowalski twins from 2 doors down had stopped their basketball game to gawk. Jake suppressed a sigh. By tomorrow, the whole neighborhood would be buzzing with speculation. The middle SUV's doors opened, and several people emerged. A woman in her 30s wearing a business suit, probably the attorney, Jennifer Walsh. A large man who was obviously security. Another woman with a tablet who screamed, "Personal assistant." And finally, Reba McEntire herself, dressed casually in jeans and a burgundy blouse, her red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She spotted Jake watching through his window and waved. He opened the front door as the group approached. "Ms. McEntire, this is unexpected. I hope I'm not intruding," Reba said warmly. "I know this is unusual, but I wanted to speak with you, and I thought your home might be more comfortable than some corporate office. Please, come in." The entourage filed into Jake's living room. The space suddenly felt very small with 5 people crowding into it. The attorney, Jennifer, immediately began scanning the room with a professional eye. The security guard positioned himself near the door. The assistant found a chair and opened her tablet. Reba was the only one who seemed at ease. She looked around the living room with genuine interest, taking in the family photos, the worn but comfortable furniture, the bookshelf crammed with mechanical manuals, and Emma's old textbooks. "You have a lovely home," she said. "Very warm. Thank you. Can I offer anyone coffee? Water?" "I'm fine. Thank you," Reba said, and the others murmured agreement. She gestured to the couch. "May we sit?" Jake nodded, feeling increasingly surreal. Yesterday he was a mechanic. Today he was hosting what appeared to be a high-level business meeting in his living room with one of the biggest names in country music. Reba sat on the couch, and Jennifer took a seat beside her. Jake sat in his recliner, the one piece of furniture in the house that was purely his. The assistant remained standing, fingers poised over her tablet. The security guard stayed by the door, expressionless. "Mr. Morrison," Jennifer began, her tone professional and clipped. "My client has asked me to facilitate this meeting for several reasons. First and foremost, Ms. McEntire wants to express her gratitude for your assistance last night and her sincere regret that your kindness resulted in adverse consequences to your employment. I appreciate that. But really, there's no need. Please, let me finish. Jennifer interrupted smoothly. Second, we've conducted a preliminary review of the circumstances surrounding your termination and believe that your employer's actions may constitute wrongful dismissal despite Tennessee's at-will employment laws. His stated reasons appear to be pretextual, and there may be grounds for legal action. Jake held up a hand. I already told Ms. McEntire last night, I'm not interested in suing Derek or Elite Auto Works. It wouldn't accomplish anything except making me look vindictive. With respect, Mr. Morrison, you're looking at this from an emotional perspective rather than a practical one. A wrongful termination suit could result in significant financial compensation, reinstatement to your position, or both. I don't want to be reinstated. Who'd want to work for someone who clearly doesn't value them? Then the compensation alone would come at what cost? Jake leaned forward, his voice firm. Months of legal battles? My name in the papers? Potential employers seeing me as litigious? No, thank you. I just want to find a new job and move on with my life. Reba, who had been quiet during this exchange, spoke up. Jake, may I call you Jake? At his nod, she continued. I understand your reluctance. Truly, I do. But this isn't just about you. It's about sending a message that people can't treat good employees like disposable resources. With respect, Ms. McEntire, that's easy to say when you have the resources to fight that battle. I don't. I have a mortgage, a daughter in college, and bills that'll come due whether I'm employed or not. I need to focus on practical solutions, not symbolic victories. Jennifer started to speak, but Reba held up a hand, silencing her. That's fair. And it brings us to the real reason I wanted to meet with you today. She glanced at her assistant. Caroline? The assistant tapped her tablet, then handed it to Reba, who studied it briefly before setting it on the coffee table where Jake could see the screen. It showed what appeared to be a formal business proposal, complete with letterhead and legal language. Jake, I want to offer you a job. Whatever Jake had been expecting, it wasn't that. I'm sorry, what? A job. As my personal automotive technician and fleet manager. Jake stared at her, then at the document, then back at her. Your personal... I don't understand. Reba smiled. Let me explain. I own 7 vehicles. Well, 8 if you count the tour bus. Which technically I do own, even though a professional driver handles it most of the time. I've got the F-150 you worked on last night, a Mercedes S-Class, a vintage Corvette, 2 electric vehicles, an old Bronco I'm restoring, and a Range Rover. They're spread between my home here in Nashville, a ranch property in Oklahoma, and a house in California. She leaned forward, her expression earnest. Right now, I have different mechanics in different states handling different vehicles. It's inefficient, expensive, and frankly, I never know if I can trust that the work is being done right. What I need is someone I can trust. Someone with integrity. Someone who'd risk his own employment to help a stranger in a storm. Ms. McEntire, the salary would be $90,000 a year, plus full health benefits, retirement contributions, and a vehicle allowance since you'd need to travel between my properties periodically. You'd work primarily out of my Nashville property, which has a full garage that's currently being underutilized. The position would also include managing any vehicles used by my band and crew during tours, coordinating maintenance, handling emergencies, that sort of thing. Jake's mind reeled. $90,000. That was $20,000 more than he'd been making at Elite Auto Works. With benefits, and working exclusively with high-end vehicles for someone who clearly appreciated quality work. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "What's the catch?" he asked carefully. "The catch," Jennifer interjected, "is that this is a serious employment offer with a comprehensive contract, standard non-disclosure agreements, and professional expectations. Ms. McEntire is offering you an opportunity, Mr. Morrison, not charity. If you accept, you'd be expected to perform at the highest level." "I always perform at the highest level," Jake said, a bit of heat entering his voice. "That's never been a question." "Then what is the question?" Reba asked gently. "Because you look like a man trying to find a reason to say no." "Because this feels like pity," Jake said bluntly. "You feel guilty about what happened, so you're trying to fix it by throwing money at the problem. That's not—" "Stop right there," Reba said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. "Do I feel guilty? Absolutely. But that's not why I'm offering you this job. I'm offering you this job because last night, when I really looked at my truck's engine, I could see the quality of work. 15-year-old truck. But the maintenance was meticulous. The air filter housing had been cleaned. The belts had been properly tensioned. Someone cared about that truck beyond just getting it running." She stood and walked to Jake's bookshelf, pulling out one of his mechanical manuals. "Then I looked at how you worked. Methodical. Careful. You explained everything you were doing, not to show off, but because you genuinely love what you do. You see cars as puzzles to solve, problems to fix, not just machines to exploit for profit." She turned to face him, the manual still in her hand. "Do you know how rare that is? In my world, everyone wants something. They see the fame, the money, the access, and they calculate how they can use me to advance their own agenda. But you just saw a person who needed help. You risked your job, actually lost your job, because you chose human decency over rules." Reba set the manual back on the shelf. "So no, Jake, this isn't pity. This is recognizing talent and character when I see it, and being smart enough to offer you a position before someone else does. The question isn't whether I'm serious. I am. The question is whether you're willing to take a chance on something new." Jake sat back in his recliner, his mind racing. Everything she was saying made sense. The salary was generous, but not absurd for someone with his experience managing a private fleet. The job itself was exactly the kind of work he loved. High-end vehicles, one-on-one relationships with the owners, the ability to really take care of machines properly, rather than rushing through repair quotas. But there was something else. Something he couldn't quite articulate. A feeling that taking this job would change something fundamental about his life, would step him into a world he didn't fully understand. "Can I think about it?" he asked finally. "Of course," Reba said, returning to the couch. "Jennifer will leave the contract with you. Look it over. Have a lawyer review it if you want. I'll even pay for the lawyer if cost is a concern. Take a few days. But Jake, I need to be honest. I'm only making this offer once. If you turn it down, I'll find someone else, and that door will close. That's fair." "Good." Reba smiled, and some of the tension in the room dissipated. "Now, completely separate topic. I finish my tours sometimes and find myself in Nashville with nothing to do at 2 in the morning. Are there any good late-night diners around here? The kind with pie and coffee and waitstaff who've seen everything?" The abrupt change of topic caught Jake off guard. Yeah, actually. There's a place called Hermitage Cafe over on 6th. 24 hours, best pancakes in Nashville." "Hermitage Cafe," Reba repeated, nodding. "I'll have to check it out. You ever go there?" "Sometimes, when Emma and I want breakfast for dinner. It's her favorite spot for studying during finals week. Says the coffee keeps her awake, and the ambient noise helps her concentrate. Smart girl, Speaking of, how's she handling the news about your job? Jake grimaced. About as well as you'd expect. She's angry on my behalf and worried about tuition. I told her we'd be fine. Will you be? The question was gentle but pointed. Jake met Reba's eyes and saw genuine concern there, not judgment. Honestly, I don't know. I've got savings, but not much. 3, maybe 4 months. After that, he shrugged. But I'll figure it out. I always do. You shouldn't have to figure it out alone, Reba said quietly. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You helped me when I needed it. Let me help you now. Before Jake could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and saw Emma's name. I'm sorry. I should... Of course, take it, Jake answered. Hey, sweetie, what's up? Dad. Emma's voice was strange, tight with some emotion he couldn't identify. Dad, you need to turn on your TV, Channel 4, right now. What? Why? Just do it, please. Jake grabbed the remote and clicked on the television mounted above his fireplace. The local news was on, and the image froze him in place. It was Elite Auto Works. Police cars surrounded the building, their lights flashing. Crime scene tape cordoned off the entrance. A news reporter stood in the parking lot, speaking earnestly to the camera. Federal agents executed search warrants early this morning at Elite Auto Works, an upscale automotive repair shop in Green Hills. According to sources close to the investigation, owner Derek Hastings is under investigation for multiple counts of fraud, including insurance fraud, falsification of repair records, and theft. The investigation allegedly began 6 months ago when several customers complained about being charged for repairs and parts that were never actually installed in their vehicles. Jake's mouth went dry. What the hell? The reporter continued. FBI agents spent approximately 4 hours inside the facility, removing boxes of documents, computers, and other evidence. Hastings was not present during the search, and his current whereabouts are unknown. We're told that several employees have been interviewed as potential witnesses. The screen cut to footage from earlier that morning, showing federal agents carrying boxes out of Elite Auto Works. Jake recognized the main garage door, the parking lot where he'd worked for 15 years. The place looked violated somehow, stripped of its veneer of luxury to reveal something corrupt beneath. Dad, are you there? Emma's voice crackled through his phone. I'm here. Did you know? Did you have any idea? No. God, no, I had no idea. Reba had moved to stand beside him, watching the television with an unreadable expression. Jennifer was already on her phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. Caroline was typing frantically on her tablet. The news report showed a photo of Derek Hastings, the same smug expression Jake had seen 1,000 times. The reporter's voice droned on. If convicted, faces up to 20 years in federal prison and millions in fines. Dad? This is crazy, Emma said. You worked there for 15 years. You didn't know anything about this? I swear, Emma, I had no idea. I just fixed cars. I didn't handle the billing or insurance claims. That was all Derek and the front office staff. Are you going to be investigated? The question hit like a punch. Jake hadn't even considered that possibility. But of course the FBI would want to talk to employees. Of course they'd ask questions about who knew what and when. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Dad, don't worry about it. I didn't do anything wrong. I'll answer whatever questions they have honestly, and that'll be the end of it. Promise me you'll get a lawyer if they want to talk to you. I will. I promise. They talked for a few more minutes, Emma's worry palpable even through the phone. When Jake finally hung up, he turned to find everyone in the room watching him. Well, Reba said dryly, I'd say your instinct not to sue Derek was probably sound. He's going to have bigger legal problems. Jennifer was off the phone now, her expression thoughtful. "This actually changes things, Mr. Morrison. If Elite Auto Works is shut down pending investigation, Derek Hastings isn't in a position to provide you with any references. That makes you effectively unemployable in Nashville's luxury auto repair market without someone who can vouch for your skills and integrity." "Thanks for that cheerful assessment," Jake muttered. "I'm being practical. But it also means that Ms. McEntire's job offer is even more valuable. She can provide you with immediate employment and serve as a reference for any future positions if you decide to leave." "If he decides to leave?" Reba interjected. "Jennifer, you're selling this all wrong." "Jake, the point is that you need a job. I need someone I can trust. And fate seems to be conspiring to make this happen. Take the job, please." Jake looked at the television, still showing footage of his former workplace being dismantled by federal agents. He thought about Derek's smug face, his endless rules, his contempt for basic human kindness. He thought about 15 years of loyalty repaid with immediate dismissal. Then he looked at Reba McEntire, standing in his modest living room, making him a genuinely good offer for reasons that seemed sincere rather than manipulative. "Can I have until Monday to decide?" he asked. "Monday's fine," Reba said, smiling. "But Jake, I really hope you say yes." After they left, the 3 black Escalades pulling away in formation while Mrs. Chen watched from across the street, Jake sat alone in his living room with the contract Jennifer had left behind. It was a thick document, at least 30 pages of legal language. But the core terms were straightforward. $90,000 annual salary, full benefits, 3 weeks paid vacation, travel expenses covered, vehicle allowance, standard non-disclosure agreement, 2-year initial contract with renewal options. At the bottom of the last page was a signature line, waiting for his name. Jake set the contract down and looked around his living room. This house, this life, this careful routine he'd built, all of it was about to change, one way or another. The question was whether he'd let that change be something that happened to him or something he chose. His phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. I looked her up. Reba McEntire is worth like $95 million. She could hire anyone. If she wants to hire you, Dad, that means something. Don't overthink this. Jake smiled despite himself. His daughter, always the practical one. He picked up the contract again and began reading it carefully, word by word. If he was going to do this, he'd do it right. That's who he was. The man who read manuals cover to cover, who understood that the details mattered, who believed in doing things properly. Outside, the sun was setting over Nashville, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in the city, Derek Hastings was either in custody or fleeing. Somewhere, Tommy Brennan and the other Elite Auto Works employees were wondering what would happen to their jobs. Somewhere, Reba McEntire was probably making calls, managing her career, being the superstar she'd worked decades to become. And here, in this small house in East Nashville, Jake Morrison sat reading a contract that might change everything, wondering if it was possible that good things sometimes happen to people who just tried to do the right thing. By the time he finished reading, the sun had fully set. The contract sat on his coffee table, and beside it, Jake had placed a pen. Not yet. Monday, he told himself. Monday, he'd make the decision. But in his heart, Jake already knew what his answer would be. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that only November in Nashville could provide. Jake stood in his driveway at 6:30, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. He'd barely slept, his mind churning through scenarios and possibilities until exhaustion finally claimed him around 3 in the morning. The contract sat on his kitchen table, still unsigned. But the pen was uncapped beside it. He'd spent Sunday doing research, legitimate research, not just Googling Reba McEntire's net worth like some star-struck teenager. He'd looked into what fleet managers actually did, studied the logistics of maintaining vehicles across multiple properties, even reached out to 2 former colleagues who'd moved into private service for wealthy clients. Both had told him the same thing. If you can handle the personalities and maintain professional boundaries, private service beats shop work every time. Better pay, better hours, better treatment. The trick was finding employers who respected you as a professional rather than viewing you as hired help. Everything he'd learned about Reba McEntire suggested she'd be the former. Her reputation in Nashville wasn't just built on talent, it was built on treating people decently. The stories were legion. Crew members she'd helped through financial hardships, young artists she'd mentored, charities she supported quietly without seeking publicity. Still, Jake had hesitated. Taking this job meant stepping out of his comfort zone, accepting help when his pride wanted him to refuse, admitting that sometimes the right thing to do was let someone else be kind to you. His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy Brennan. "Mr. Morrison, I don't know if you heard, but the shop's closed indefinitely. FBI says we can't access our lockers or anything until the investigation's done. I was supposed to finish that truck for the lady who was there Friday night. Do you know if she ever got it fixed?" Jake typed back, "Shop's closed. What about paychecks?" "Don't know. Nobody's answering phones. Some of us are talking about filing for unemployment. Did you find something else yet?" Jake stared at the message. Tommy was 26, probably living paycheck to paycheck like most people his age. No job, no access to his tools, no final paycheck. At least Jake had some savings and years of experience to fall back on. "I've got a lead on something. Keep me posted on what happens with Elite. And Tommy, you're a good mechanic. You'll land on your feet. Thanks, Mr. Morrison. That means a lot." Jake went back inside, set his coffee mug down, and picked up the pen. He signed the contract with firm, clear strokes, then took a photo of the signature page and texted it to the number Jennifer Walsh had provided. Her response came within minutes. "Excellent news. Ms. McEntire will be pleased. Can you meet at her Nashville property tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Address: 4428 Old Hickory Boulevard. The gate code is 1953, the year she was born. Bring your tools if you have them. Otherwise, we'll provide everything you need." Jake replied, "I'll be there. Thank you." He looked around his kitchen, at the quiet morning routine he'd followed for years, and felt something shift inside him. Fear, maybe, or excitement, possibly both. His old life had ended Friday night in a storm. Tomorrow, his new life would begin. The rest of Monday passed in a blur of practical preparations. Jake inventoried his tools, the good ones he'd accumulated over 2 decades, professional-grade equipment that had survived his transition from Elite Auto Works. He organized them in his rolling toolbox, making mental notes of what he might need to supplement. Emma called during her lunch break. "Did you sign it?" "I signed it." Her whoop of joy made him pull the phone away from his ear. "Dad, that's amazing. Do you know what this means?" "It means I have a job. It means you get to work for Reba McEntire. Do you know how cool that is? My friends are going to lose their minds. Emma, I need you to promise me something. Don't tell everyone at school about this. Reba's entitled to her privacy, and I don't want to be that guy whose daughter is bragging to everyone about her dad's famous employer. But promise me." She sighed dramatically. "Fine, I promise. But can I at least tell my roommate? She's obsessed with Reba's music. Just your roommate. Nobody else. Deal! Dad, I'm really proud of you. This is going to be great. I can feel it." Jake hoped she was right. Tuesday morning, he arrived at the old Hickory Boulevard address at 8:45, wanting to be early, but not so early that he appeared desperate. The property was accessible through an unmarked gate set between stone pillars, surrounded by mature trees that obscured the view from the road. He punched in the code, 1953, and the gate swung open silently. The driveway curved through landscaped grounds that managed to look both maintained and natural, as if the property had always existed this way. After about a quarter mile, the house came into view, and Jake had to revise his expectations. He'd been imagining something ostentatious, marble columns, excessive square footage, the kind of showy wealth that screamed, "Look at me." Instead, the house was large but tasteful, a sprawling ranch-style structure with stone and wood accents that blended into the surrounding landscape. It had the comfortable elegance of a home actually lived in, rather than a showpiece for impressing visitors. But it was the garage that caught his attention. A separate building to the left of the main house, it was a mechanic's dream, a 6-bay facility with high ceilings, epoxy-coated floors, and what appeared to be state-of-the-art ventilation systems. Through the open bay doors, he could see several vehicles already parked inside. Reba emerged from the main house as Jake parked his Silverado near the garage. She was dressed casually in jeans and a flannel shirt, her hair pulled back, looking like she might be heading out to run errands rather than meeting with her new employee. "You came," she said, smiling warmly. "I signed the contract," Jake replied, climbing out of his truck. "That means I show up." "I'm glad. Let me show you around." The garage tour was revelatory. The 6 bays were equipped with lifts, compressed air systems, and diagnostic computers that were more advanced than anything Elite Auto Works had owned. Along one wall, a comprehensive tool organization system held equipment that Jake estimated was worth over $200,000. The previous owner was a collector, Reba explained. He built this garage for his vintage cars. When I bought the property 5 years ago, it was one of the selling points. I figured someday I'd find someone who could really use it properly. The vehicles themselves were impressive. The red F-150 Jake had worked on Friday night sat in the first bay, still not fully reassembled. Tommy had never gotten the chance to finish it. Next to it was a pristine 1967 Corvette Stingray in midnight blue, its chrome gleaming under the garage lights. Beyond that, a Mercedes S-Class, a Tesla Model X, a restored Bronco, and a Range Rover. The Corvette was my dad's, Reba said softly, running her hand along its hood. "He passed 10 years ago. I keep meaning to drive it more, but I'm always terrified I'll scratch it or something will break." "Silly, I know. Not silly at all. It's a connection to someone you loved." She looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "Exactly. Most people tell me it's just a car. I should enjoy it. But it's not just a car." "Nothing is ever just a car," Jake said. "Cars are memories. They're the vehicle that took you to your first job, the truck that helped you move into your first house, the sedan where you had important conversations. People who say they're just machines don't understand." Reba nodded slowly. "I think I hired the right person." They spent the next hour going over each vehicle's history, maintenance records, and quirks. Reba had kept meticulous files, receipts, service records, even handwritten notes about unusual sounds or behaviors. It was exactly the kind of documentation that made a mechanic's job easier. "The Tesla's been making a weird humming noise when I accelerate," she said. 3 different Tesla service centers told me it's normal, but it definitely wasn't doing it 6 months ago. Jake made a note. "I'll check it out. Could be the motor bearings, could be something in the differential. Electric vehicles have their own language. Can you work on electric vehicles?" "I've been studying them for the past 5 years. Took several certification courses online." The future is electric, whether we like it or not, so I figured I'd better learn. Reba looked impressed. Derek Hastings probably would have told you that was a waste of time. Derek Hastings thought anything that didn't immediately increase his profit margin was a waste of time. Speaking of Derek, have you heard anything new? Jake shook his head. Nothing beyond what's been on the news. Federal investigation, possible fraud charges, shop closed indefinitely. I keep expecting the FBI to show up and want to interview me. But so far, nothing. Jennifer's keeping an eye on the situation. If they do contact you, she can recommend a good attorney who handles white-collar crime defense. Not that you'd need defending, you didn't do anything wrong, but it's good to have representation when dealing with federal investigators. I appreciate that. They moved from the garage to a small office attached to the building. It was furnished simply: a desk, computer, filing cabinet, and a comfortable chair. The window looked out over the property's back acreage, where horses grazed peacefully in the distance. "This is your space," Reba said. "Computers networked to the main house, so you can access files, order parts, whatever you need. All the vendor accounts are already set up with passwords in that folder." She pointed to a blue binder on the desk. "I've also included contact information for my assistant Caroline, my tour manager, and my business manager. They'll coordinate with you on vehicle needs when I'm traveling." Jake sat in the desk chair, testing it. Good lumbar support. Someone had thought about ergonomics. This is more organized than I expected. I've had 15 years of learning how to run a business. Organization is the difference between success and chaos. Chut. She leaned against the door frame. "I should tell you, I'm leaving Thursday for a 3-week tour. California, Nevada, Arizona. I was going to cancel some dates because of the truck situation, but now that you're here, I don't have to worry." "You were going to cancel tour dates because of one broken truck?" "It wasn't just the truck. It was the realization that I didn't have anyone I could fully trust with my vehicles. My property, my peace of mind. You showing up when you did? It felt like the universe saying, 'Here's your solution.'" Jake wasn't sure he believed in the universe providing solutions, but he understood what she meant. Sometimes, timing was everything. "I'll take care of things while you're gone," he said. "You focus on your tour. I'll focus on making sure everything here runs smoothly." "I know you will." Reba pushed off from the doorframe. "Now, let's talk salary logistics. You'll be paid bi-weekly via direct deposit. Health insurance kicks in immediately. No waiting period. Retirement matching starts after 90 days. Caroline will get you set up with all the paperwork this afternoon." They spent another hour going over administrative details: tax forms, emergency contacts, property security codes. Jake learned that the Nashville property had a full-time groundskeeper named Luis Rodriguez, who lived in a cottage on the far side of the acreage, and a housekeeper named Patricia Chen, who came 3 days a week. "Luis has been here longer than I have," Reba said. "He came with the property. Good man, keeps to himself mostly, but he knows everything about this place. If you ever need anything, he's a good resource." By noon, Jake's head was spinning with information. Reba seemed to sense his overwhelm and suggested they break for lunch. They ate sandwiches on the main house's back patio, watching the horses graze and birds flit between the trees. "Can I ask you something personal?" Reba said after a while. "Sure. Why did you really take this job? And I want the honest answer, not the polite one." Jake considered his response carefully. "Honestly? Because I'm 42 years old, and Friday night was the first time in my adult life that I've been unemployed. It scared me. Not just the money part, though that's real, but the feeling of being discarded, of having 15 years of loyalty mean nothing. Your offer was a lifeline, and I was drowning. That's honest. Thank you. But also," Jake continued, Because you're right about one thing. I do love what I do. I love taking something broken and making it work again. I love the puzzle of diagnosis, the satisfaction of repair, the relationship between a mechanic and the machines they maintain. Your offer gives me a chance to do what I love with resources I've never had access to before. That's worth a lot. Reba nodded slowly. I can understand that. Music is like that for me. The business side, the contracts, the negotiations, the politics, that's all necessary but exhausting. But standing on stage, connecting with an audience through a song, that's why I do this. That's what makes everything else worthwhile. They talked for another hour, the conversation ranging from family to philosophy to the challenges of maintaining authenticity in industries that often rewarded artifice. Jake found himself genuinely liking this woman, beyond her fame or success. She was thoughtful, funny, self-deprecating in the way of people who'd earned the right to be confident. I should let you get to work, Reba said finally. I'm sure you want to do a thorough assessment of all the vehicles. I do, and I want to finish your truck. It's been bothering me that I left it incomplete. Take your time. I've got the Mercedes if I need to go anywhere. Jake spent the rest of the afternoon in the garage, in his element. He completed the F-150's reassembly, test-started the engine, and smiled at the smooth, quiet purr that resulted. No knocking, no rattling. Just the sound of a well-maintained engine running as it should. Next, he moved to the Tesla, running diagnostics and taking it for a test drive around the property. The humming Reba had mentioned was indeed abnormal, a bearing issue in the front motor that would need replacing. Not dangerous yet, but worth addressing before it became a problem. The Corvette was perfect, barely driven, maintained with obvious love. The Bronco needed some suspension work. The Range Rover's air conditioning was weak. The Mercedes was flawless. By 6 o'clock, Jake had comprehensive notes on every vehicle and a prioritized list of maintenance tasks. He was locking up the garage when Luis appeared, pushing a wheelbarrow full of mulch. "You must be the new mechanic," Luis said, in lightly accented English. He was in his 50s, with weathered skin that spoke of years working outdoors and the compact build of someone who'd done physical labor his entire life. "Jake Morrison." They shook hands. "Luis Rodriguez. Been maintaining these grounds for 8 years. Good to have someone taking care of the vehicles finally. Miss McEntire, she's a good boss, but she doesn't know anything about cars. I'm learning that. How's it been working here?" "Quiet, peaceful. She travels a lot, but when she's home, she's respectful. Doesn't bother me. I don't bother her. We get along fine." Luis studied Jake with sharp eyes. "You planning to stay, or is this temporary?" "Planning to stay, if everything works out." "Good. Place needs stability. Too many people come and go these days." They talked for a few minutes about the property, where the well was located, which trees needed trimming, the best place to park if it rained, and the driveway flooded. Practical information delivered in Luis's straightforward manner. As Jake drove home that evening, the Nashville skyline glowing in the distance, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that came from wishful thinking, but the solid kind built on concrete possibilities. His phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Unknown number. "Mr. Morrison? This is Special Agent David Kelly with the FBI. I'm calling regarding your former employment at Elite Auto Works. I'd like to schedule a time to speak with you about the ongoing investigation." And just like that, the past reached out to remind him that nothing was ever simple. The FBI field office in Nashville occupied a nondescript building on Royal Parkway, designed to blend in rather than stand out. Jake arrived Wednesday morning at 9, as scheduled, wearing his best slacks and a button-down shirt. He'd debated bringing Jennifer Walsh's recommended attorney, but ultimately decided against it. He had nothing to hide, and showing up with a lawyer might make him look guilty. Still, as he checked in at reception and was escorted to a small interview room, anxiety gnawed at his stomach. The room was exactly as he'd imagined from TV shows. Plain walls, a metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a mirror that was probably one-way glass. Special Agent David Kelly entered 5 minutes later with a female colleague he introduced as Special Agent Lisa Torres. Kelly was in his early 40s, with the kind of precise appearance that suggested military background. Torres was younger, maybe 35, with intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything. "Mr. Morrison, thank you for coming in," Kelly said, settling into the chair across from Jake. "We appreciate your cooperation." "Of course. I want to help however I can." "You're not under investigation," Torres said immediately. "Let's establish that right away. We've reviewed your employment records, tax returns, and financial history. You appear to have been a regular employee with no involvement in the fraudulent activities we're investigating." Relief flooded through Jake. "That's good to know. However," Kelly continued, "you worked at Elite Auto Works for 15 years in a senior position. You may have observed things relevant to our investigation, even if you didn't recognize their significance at the time." For the next 90 minutes, they walked Jake through his employment history. When had he started? What were his duties? How did billing work? Who handled customer interactions? Did he ever witness Derek Hastings instructing employees to falsify records? Jake answered everything honestly. He'd been a mechanic, focused on repair work. The front office handled billing, insurance claims, and customer service. He'd occasionally wondered about some of Derek's business practices, the pressure to find additional repairs, the insistence on using certain parts suppliers, the way service estimates sometimes seemed inflated. But he'd always assumed it was just aggressive business tactics rather than outright fraud. "Did you ever refuse to do work that seemed unnecessary?" Torres asked. "A few times, early on. Derek made it clear that I wasn't hired to question business decisions. My job was to fix cars the way he told me to fix them." "Can you give us specific examples?" Jake thought back. "There was a regular customer, owned a BMW X5. Brought it in for routine maintenance. I checked everything, found no issues. Recommended just oil change and rotation. Derek came out to the bay, looked at the car, told me to find something else wrong. Said the customer had money and wouldn't blink at a $2,000 service bill. What did you do? I told him the car was fine. He said I was being naive, that luxury car owners expected to pay premium prices. If I didn't find something, I wasn't doing my job properly. So I recommended replacing the cabin air filter and the engine air filter. Both were slightly dirty, but definitely not in need of replacement yet. The customer approved the work, paid about $400 extra. Did situations like that happen often? More often than I wanted to admit to myself. I told myself I was just being thorough, maintaining high standards. But looking back, Jake shook his head. I think I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't want to risk my job by pushing back too hard. Torres made notes. Did Derek Hastings ever discuss insurance claims with you? Not in detail. But I know some repairs were billed to insurance that the customers never saw. They'd bring in cars for warranty work, and Derek would submit insurance claims for additional damage that may or may not have existed. May or may not. I can't say for sure. I'd do the warranty work, he'd handle the insurance side. I didn't question it. They asked about specific customers, dates, repairs. Jake answered what he could, admitted ignorance when he couldn't. By the time they finished, he felt drained, not from the questions themselves, but from confronting his own willful blindness over the years. You've been very helpful, Mr. Morrison, Kelly said, standing. We may contact you again as the investigation progresses. If you think of anything else relevant, please call. He handed Jake a business card. Can I ask a question? Sure. How bad is it? What Derek was doing, I mean. Torres and Kelly exchanged glances. Finally, Kelly said, "We've identified over $400,000 in fraudulent billing over a 3-year period. That's likely just what we can document. The actual number is probably much higher. Customers were charged for repairs never performed, parts never installed, labor never completed. Insurance companies were billed for damage that didn't exist. It's extensive, sophisticated, and involved multiple people." Jake felt sick. $400,000. Who else was involved? "I can't discuss an ongoing investigation, but you should know several of your former colleagues are being interviewed. Some may face charges if we determine they knowingly participated." Tommy Brennan? "I can't confirm or deny specific names." Jake left the FBI office feeling like he'd been through an emotional ringer. Tommy was a good kid, eager, hardworking, always asking questions to improve his skills. But he'd also been desperate to keep his job, to pay his bills, to prove himself. If Derek had pressured him the way he'd pressured Jake. His phone rang as he reached his truck. It was Caroline, Reba's assistant. "Jake, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "No, I'm just finishing up some errands. What's up?" "Reba leaves for her tour tomorrow, and she wanted me to check if you need anything before she goes. Questions about the vehicles, concerns about the property, anything." "Actually, I do have a question. The Corvette, has it ever been fully serviced? Beyond just oil changes, I mean." "I'm not sure. Let me check the records." "Okay, looks like the last major service was 3 years ago." "Why?" "It's been sitting a lot, and that's hard on cars even when they're maintained. I'd recommend a comprehensive service. Fluids, filters, checking all seals and gaskets, maybe replacing the fuel in the tank. That car deserves to be driven, but not until I'm confident it won't have issues." "How long would that take?" "If I start today, I could have it ready by the time she gets back from tour. But I'd need to order some parts. Can I get approval to spend about $1,500 on specialized supplies?" "Absolutely. I'll email you the account information for her auto parts vendor. Order whatever you need." After they hung up, Jake sat in his truck for a long moment, processing the morning. In one conversation, he'd been reminded of his complicity in Derek's schemes, however passive. In another, he'd been given carte blanche to properly care for a vehicle worth more than most people's homes. The contrast was jarring. The old Jake had compromised his standards bit by bit, convincing himself he was just following orders. The new Jake had the authority and resources to do things right, with an employer who trusted him completely. He just had to prove worthy of that trust. The rest of Wednesday and Thursday blurred into intensive work. Jake ordered parts for the Corvette and began the careful process of servicing a classic vehicle. Each component was treated with respect. Vintage cars required a different approach than modern vehicles, a combination of historical knowledge and mechanical skill. Reba stopped by the garage Thursday morning before leaving for her tour. She was traveling in business casual. Nice jeans, a tailored jacket, with an expensive leather bag over her shoulder. "How's my dad's car?" she asked, peering at the Corvette on the lift. "Getting the attention it deserves. I'm replacing all the fluids, checking the brake system, inspecting every seal. When I'm done, it'll run like the day it left the factory. Will it be safe to drive? More than safe. It'll be perfect." Reba smiled, but there was emotion behind it. He'd be glad someone who cares is working on it. Toward the end, when he was sick, he worried about what would happen to this car. "I promised him I'd take care of it, but I didn't really know how." "You kept it. That's taking care of it." "I kept it in a garage. That's preserving it. Not the same thing." She ran her hand along the fender. "When I get back, will you teach me how to drive it properly?" Dad tried when I was younger, but I was terrified of the manual transmission. It would be my pleasure. Good. She straightened. Businesswoman mode returning. Caroline has all my contact information if you need anything. Luis knows the property better than anyone, so don't hesitate to ask him questions. The house is yours to access if needed. Security codes are in your office. Just make yourself at home. I will. Have a safe tour. Thanks, Jake. And Jake, thank you for being here. I don't think I fully expressed how much that means to me. After she left, Jake worked in peaceful solitude. The garage was his sanctuary, the Corvette his patient. He lost himself in the meditative rhythm of careful maintenance, checking, cleaning, replacing, adjusting. This was what he loved, what he was meant to do. Friday afternoon, Tommy Brennan called. "Mr. Morrison? I hope you don't mind me bothering you." "Never a bother, Tommy. What's going on?" "I just got out of an FBI interview. They asked me all these questions about work Derek had me do, repairs I completed, whether I ever falsified records." Tommy's voice was shaking. "Mr. Morrison, I think I'm in trouble." Jake's stomach sank. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That Derek sometimes made me charge for work I didn't do. That he'd tell me to put expensive parts on invoices when I actually used cheaper alternatives. That he had this whole system for inflating insurance claims. Did you know it was illegal when you were doing it?" Silence. Then, quietly, "I suspected, but I needed the job. My girlfriend and I are trying to save for a wedding. My mom's medical bills from last year wiped out my savings. I couldn't afford to lose the income, so I did what I was told and tried not to think about it too much." Jake understood that feeling intimately. "Did the FBI say you were being charged with anything?" "Not yet. But they said I might be called as a witness if there's a trial, and that if I cooperated fully, they'd take that into consideration when deciding whether to pursue charges against me." "Tommy, listen to me. You need to get a lawyer. Even if you can't afford much, find someone who can advise you on how to handle this. Don't talk to the FBI again without legal representation. I can't afford a lawyer. Do you know how much they cost?" Jake thought about his own situation. New job, decent salary, resources he hadn't had a week ago. He thought about Tommy's eagerness to learn, his work ethic, his fundamental decency that had been exploited by a corrupt employer. "I might know someone who can help. Let me make some calls." After hanging up, Jake contacted Jennifer Walsh. She listened to the situation, asked a few clarifying questions, then said, "I can recommend someone. Gerald Patterson does white-collar criminal defense. Takes some pro bono cases for people who can't afford representation. Let me reach out to him. See if he'd be willing to at least consult with your friend." "Thank you. I appreciate this. Jake, you're building goodwill very quickly. Reba told me you're doing excellent work on her vehicles. Keep that up, and you'll find people are willing to help when you need it." The weekend passed in productive solitude. Jake finished the Corvette's service Saturday afternoon and took it for a test drive through the property's private roads. The car handled beautifully, the engine responsive and smooth, the transmission engaging with satisfying precision. This was automotive craftsmanship at its finest, and Jake had restored it to glory. Sunday, Luis invited him to the groundskeeper's cottage for coffee. The small building was comfortable and lived in, decorated with family photos and mementos from Luis's native Guatemala. "You're settling in well," Luis observed, handing Jake a mug of strong, dark coffee. "It's a good place to work. Peaceful. Peaceful can be boring for some people. Not enough excitement." Jake smiled. "I've had enough excitement lately. Peaceful sounds perfect." They talked about the property, the vehicles, life in Nashville. Luis had immigrated 20 years ago, worked his way up from day laborer to senior groundskeeper, married an American woman who'd passed away 5 years ago from cancer. His children were grown, living their own lives, visiting when they could. "You remind me of someone," Luis said after a while. "My brother, back in Guatemala. Good man, hard worker, always trying to do right by people. World doesn't always reward that, you know? I'm learning that, but sometimes it does. You just have to be patient. Keep doing good work. Trust that things work out." Luis raised his coffee mug. "To doing good work." Jake clinked his mug against Luis's. "To doing good work." Monday brought news. Derek Hastings had been arrested. The local news showed footage of him being walked out of his house in handcuffs, his expensive suit rumpled, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine fear. The charges were extensive: wire fraud, insurance fraud, theft, money laundering. Bail was set at $500,000. Jake watched the footage with mixed emotions. Part of him felt vindicated, Derek's corruption exposed, his empire dismantled. But another part felt only sadness. How many lives had Derek damaged in his pursuit of profit? How many employees had he pressured into compromising their integrity? How many customers had he cheated? His phone rang. Gerald Patterson, the attorney Jennifer had recommended. "Mr. Morrison, I've reviewed Tommy Brennan's situation. I'm willing to represent him through the investigation at a significantly reduced rate, $500 up front. Then we'll work out a payment plan for any additional costs. Can you get that message to him?" "I can. Thank you for doing this. Jennifer Walsh vouches for you, which carries weight in this town. And honestly, these cases where working-class people get caught up in their employers' schemes, I have a soft spot for them. I'll do my best to keep your friend out of serious trouble." Jake called Tommy immediately, relaying the information. The relief in the young man's voice was palpable. "Mr. Morrison, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by learning from this, by being smarter about who you work for and what you're willing to compromise, by building a career based on integrity rather than shortcuts." "I will, I promise." That evening, Jake sat in his garage office, updating maintenance logs and planning next steps for Reba's other vehicles. Through the window, he could see the sun setting over the property, painting everything in golden light. The horses grazed peacefully. Birds called to each other in the trees. Everything was still and perfect. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "I got an email from financial aid. They're reducing my scholarship by $2,000 next semester because Dad's new income. I didn't even think about that. I'm sorry." Jake stared at the message, his mind racing. $2,000. He had it in savings, but that was money he'd earmarked for emergencies. And if Emma's financial aid had already been reduced based on 1 month's income, what would happen when they calculated a full year at his new salary? He typed back, "Not your fault. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it." But he was worrying. This was the catch he'd been waiting for. The complication that proved nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. More money meant less aid. Less aid meant more out-of-pocket expenses. More expenses meant less savings. Less savings meant less security. The math was brutal in its simplicity. Jake set his phone down and looked at the Corvette, sitting pristine in its bay. Tomorrow he'd start on the Tesla's motor bearing. After that, the Bronco's suspension. After that, regular maintenance on the Mercedes. The work was satisfying, important, well compensated. But satisfying, important work didn't change the fact that college was expensive, life was complicated, and sometimes the solutions to one problem created new problems you hadn't anticipated. He pulled up a spreadsheet on his computer and began running numbers, trying to find a way to make everything work. By the time he left for the night, he had a plan. Tight, with no margin for error, but feasible. As he drove home through the Nashville evening, Jake reflected on the strange path his life had taken in less than 2 weeks. Fired from one job, hired for another. Under FBI investigation, then cleared. Worried about money, then making more, then worried about money again. Life, he was learning, wasn't a straight line from problem to solution. It was a complicated web of interlocking challenges and opportunities, and navigating it required constant adaptation. But he'd been adapting his whole life. He could do this too. He just had to keep moving forward, one day at a time, and trust that doing good work would eventually lead somewhere worth going. 3 weeks later, Reba returned from her tour on a cold December afternoon. Jake was in the garage, finishing a diagnostic on the Range Rover, when he heard her car pull up. He wiped his hands and went out to meet her. She looked tired, but happy. The kind of exhaustion that came from meaningful work, rather than futility. "How's everything been?" "Quiet. Productive. The Corvette's ready whenever you want to drive it." Her face lit up. "Really? Can we go now?" "Right now." "Why not?" "The sun's still up, the roads are dry, and I've been thinking about that car for 3 weeks." Jake retrieved the keys from his office while Reba changed into jeans and boots more suitable for driving. When she returned, he had the Corvette pulled out of the garage, its midnight blue paint gleaming in the winter sun. "She's beautiful," Reba breathed, circling the car slowly. "I've never seen her look this good. Your father took care of her." I just continued his work. They settled into the leather seats, and Jake walked Reba through the basics. The clutch required a gentle touch. The throttle was responsive. Too much pressure and you'd spin the tires. The steering was direct, with none of the power assist modern drivers expected. "It's going to feel completely different from anything you're used to," Jake warned. "No electronic stability control, no anti-lock brakes. Just you, the car, and physics." "That's terrifying." "That's honest. Modern cars protect you from your mistakes. This one makes you earn every mile." They started with the property's private roads, Reba nervous but determined. The first few attempts at shifting were rough. She stalled twice, ground the gears once. But gradually, she found the rhythm. Clutch in, shift, clutch out smoothly. The Corvette responded to her growing confidence, its powerful engine purring contentedly. By the 4th lap around the property, Reba was smiling. "This is amazing. I can feel everything. The road, the engine, the way the weight shifts in turns. It's like the car is talking to me." That's what your father loved about it. These old cars require attention, engagement. They're not transportation. They're an experience. They drove for an hour, Reba's skills improving with each pass. When they finally returned to the garage, she was flushed with exhilaration and something else. A connection to her father that transcended death. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "You didn't just fix a car. You gave me back a piece of my dad. He'd be proud of you. You drove well. I stalled twice. Everyone stalls learning manual. Your dad probably stalled 100 times when he learned." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the Corvette ticking as its engine cooled. Then Reba said, "I have news. The tour was incredible, sold out every venue. And we're doing an additional leg in the spring. 6 weeks, hitting cities we missed this time." "That's wonderful. Congratulations. It also means I need to think about logistics. The tour bus needs service, the equipment trucks need maintenance, and I realized I was doing what I always do, trying to coordinate different mechanics in different cities, hoping they all do good work." She turned to face him. "What would you think about expanding your role? still managing my personal vehicles, but also overseeing maintenance for the tour operation. It would mean some travel during tour preparation and maybe occasional road checks during the tour itself. Jake considered the offer. More responsibility, more travel, more money probably, but also more time away from Emma, more complexity, more pressure. Can I think about it? Of course, no rush. I just wanted to plant the seed. They walked back to the main house where Caroline had dinner waiting. Nothing fancy, just homemade chili and cornbread. But it smelled incredible. Reba insisted Jake join them, and he found himself at her dining table, listening to tour stories and road anecdotes. There was this one venue in Phoenix, Reba said, laughing, where the loading dock was so poorly designed that we couldn't fit the equipment truck through. Ended up unloading everything by hand in 100-degree heat. Took 6 hours instead of 1. Sounds miserable. It was, but also kind of great. The crew came together. We got it done. Everyone had stories to tell afterward. Sometimes the disasters make the best memories. Jake thought about his own recent disaster. Getting fired, the storm, meeting Reba. A month ago, he'd have called it the worst night of his life. Now, it seemed like the night everything changed for the better. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Can you come by campus tomorrow? I want to introduce you to someone." He typed back, "Sure. Everything okay?" "Everything's great. Just want you to meet my boyfriend." Jake blinked at the screen. Boyfriend? When had that happened? And why was he just now hearing about it? He must have made a face because Reba asked, "Bad news?" "No, just, my daughter apparently has a boyfriend I didn't know about, and I'm meeting him tomorrow." Reba grinned. Oh, the dreaded meet the parents moment. How old is she? 20. Then she's allowed to have boyfriends without clearing them with dad first. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But emotionally, I'm stuck somewhere around her being 12 and me vetting every friend who came to the house. Welcome to parenting adult children. It doesn't get easier, just different. They talked about kids, family, the complicated relationships that defined their lives. Reba's son had just gotten married, her daughters were pursuing their own careers, and she was adjusting to being grandmother to 2 beautiful grandchildren. The hardest part, she said, is accepting that they don't need you the way they used to. You spend 20 years being indispensable, and then suddenly they're independent. It's what you wanted, but it still hurts. Jake understood that feeling. Emma was becoming her own person, building her own life. Soon she'd graduate, get a job, maybe move to another city. The house in East Nashville would be empty except for him. And he'd have to figure out who Jake Morrison was when he wasn't primarily Emma's father. It was a melancholy thought. He left around 8, driving home through Nashville streets decorated for Christmas. Lights twinkled on houses. Inflatable Santas waved from lawns. And the city had that particular energy that came with approaching holidays. Tuesday afternoon, Jake drove to Vanderbilt's campus. Emma had suggested meeting at a coffee shop near the engineering building, a place called Grins that apparently served excellent sandwiches along with overpriced coffee. She was waiting outside when he arrived, bundled in a winter coat, looking happy and nervous. Beside her stood a young man, African-American, probably 6 feet tall, with an athlete's build and an open, friendly face. "Dad, this is Marcus Delaney." "Marcus, my dad, Jake Morrison." They shook hands, Marcus's grip firm and respectful. "Nice to meet you, sir. Emma talks about you all the time. All good things, I hope. Mostly stories about cars and teaching her to change oil when she was 12. Emma laughed. "You made me learn on that terrible Buick you had. Remember? The one that leaked oil constantly?" That Buick taught you valuable lessons about patience and having rags handy. They went inside, found a table, and settled in with coffee. Jake observed Marcus carefully. The way he held doors for Emma, the way he listened when she talked, the casual affection between them that spoke of genuine relationship rather than superficial attraction. "Emma tells me you're studying mechanical engineering," Jake said. "Yes, sir. Specializing in automotive systems design. I'm hoping to land an internship at one of the Detroit automakers this summer. Electric or combustion?" "Both, actually. I think the future is hybrid systems that can transition between power sources based on need. Pure electric is great for urban environments, but we're not there yet for rural or long-distance applications." They talked shop for 20 minutes. Transmission design, battery technology, the engineering challenges of lightweight materials. Jake found himself genuinely impressed. Marcus knew his stuff, spoke with the confidence of someone who'd done the work rather than just read about it. Eventually, Emma steered the conversation to safer topics: campus life, upcoming finals, holiday plans. Jake learned that Marcus was from Memphis, one of 3 children, his father an electrician and his mother a teacher. Solid, working-class background. Family that valued education and hard work. All the boxes checked. "Sir," Marcus said as they were leaving, "I know this is probably weird, meeting your daughter's boyfriend for the first time, but I want you to know, I care about Emma. A lot. I'm not playing games or wasting her time." Jake studied the young man, seeing sincerity in his eyes. "Emma's smart enough to make her own choices about who she spends time with, but I appreciate you saying that. I also want to say, she told me what happened with your job. That took courage, helping someone when you knew it might cost you. That's the kind of integrity I respect." After they left, Emma walked Jake to his truck. "So, what do you think? He seems like a good guy." "That's it? Just good guy? What do you want me to say?" "He's smart, polite, treats you well. I approve." Emma hugged him suddenly. "Thank you for not being weird about this. I'm allowed to be a little weird. You're my daughter." "I know. But Marcus was so nervous about meeting you. He's been asking me for weeks, and I kept putting it off because, I don't know. I didn't want you to think I was replacing you or something." Jake pulled back, surprised. "Replacing me? Emma? You're supposed to have relationships. That's healthy. That's what I want for you." "I know. But you and I have been a team for so long. Just the 2 of us against the world. Adding someone else felt like I was breaking up the team." "You're not breaking up anything. You're just expanding it." They talked for a few more minutes, and Jake drove away feeling oddly emotional. His daughter was growing up, moving forward with her life. It was exactly what was supposed to happen, but that didn't make it any less bittersweet. Wednesday brought unexpected news. Tommy Brennan's case had been resolved. Gerald Patterson called Jake with the update. The FBI agreed to immunity in exchange for his full cooperation. He'll testify against Hastings if it goes to trial, but he won't face any charges himself. They determined he was following orders under employment coercion rather than actively participating in fraud. That's wonderful news. It is. He's a lucky young man. Not everyone in his situation gets that outcome. Patterson paused. He also wanted me to thank you. Said you didn't have to help him, but you did anyway. He's a good kid who made some bad choices in a difficult situation. Everyone deserves a second chance. After hanging up, Jake felt a weight lift. Tommy would be okay. He'd learned hard lessons, but he wouldn't be permanently branded as a criminal. That was worth celebrating. The rest of the week passed in steady work. Jake finished the Tesla's bearing replacement, completed the Broncos' suspension overhaul, and started preparing maintenance schedules for Reba's California and Oklahoma properties. The work was satisfying, the kind that left him tired but content at the end of each day. Friday afternoon, Caroline called. "Jake, Reba wants to know if you're available for dinner tonight. Nothing formal, just her and a few friends at her house. She'd like you to join them. I don't want to intrude on her personal time. She specifically invited you. That means she wants you there." So Jake found himself back at the Nashville property that evening, dressed in nice jeans and a button-down shirt, feeling out of place among Reba's circle of friends. Other musicians, a songwriter couple, a music producer, all people who moved in circles far above his social level. But Reba made a point of including him in conversations, asking his opinions, treating him as an equal rather than an employee. When the songwriter mentioned car trouble, Reba steered the conversation to Jake's expertise, and he spent 20 minutes explaining the finer points of hybrid system maintenance to a rapt audience. "You really love this, don't you?" the producer observed. "You light up when you talk about cars." "It's the only thing I've ever been really good at," Jake admitted. "Understanding how things work, fixing what's broken. I failed at marriage. I've stumbled through fatherhood. But cars make sense." "That's not nothing," Reba said. "Finding something you're good at and passionate about, that's everything. Most people spend their whole lives searching for that." Later, after the guests had left, Reba and Jake sat on her back patio with coffee, watching the horses in their nighttime enclosure. "Can I ask you something personal?" Reba said. "Sure. Are you happy? I mean really happy, not just getting by." Jake considered the question. A month ago, his answer would have been a reflexive yes. The kind of response you give when you're not really thinking about it. But now, after everything that had happened, he examined the question seriously. "I'm content," he said finally. "Happy feels like a big word. But content? Yes. I have work I enjoy, a daughter I'm proud of, a life that makes sense. That's enough." "Is it though? Don't you want more? Partnership, companionship, someone to share your life with? I had that once. It didn't work out. So you're going to let one failed marriage define the rest of your life?" Jake smiled ruefully. "When you put it that way, it sounds pretty defeatist." "Because it is. Jake, you're a good man. Kind, honest, hardworking. You deserve more than just contentment. Maybe, but I don't know how to want more anymore. I've been in survival mode so long that I've forgotten what thriving looks like." Reba nodded slowly. "I understand that. After my divorce, I felt the same way. Just getting through each day was accomplishment enough. But eventually, I realized I was settling for less than I deserved. It took work, therapy, honest self-reflection, being willing to be vulnerable again, but I got there. Are you suggesting I need therapy? I'm suggesting you deserve to be happy, not just content. And that might mean doing some work on yourself, figuring out what Jake Morrison wants beyond just providing for Emma and fixing cars." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the night air cold but not unpleasant. Finally, Jake said, "I'll think about it." "Good. Now, about that expanded role I mentioned, have you given it any thought?" "Some. The truth is, I'm torn. More responsibility sounds great, and I'm flattered you trust me with it. But I'm also aware that I just got comfortable with this position. Taking on more feels like I might be overextending. What if we started small? You oversee the tour bus maintenance for the spring tour. See how you like the travel and logistics. If it works, we expand. If it doesn't, we keep things as they are. That seems fair. Then it's settled. We'll work out the details after the holidays." Christmas came and went in a blur of modest celebration. Jake and Emma spent Christmas Day together at his house, cooking a meal that was more ambitious than successful. The turkey was dry, the mashed potatoes lumpy, but they laughed through it, and that was what mattered. Marcus joined them for dessert, bringing homemade pecan pie his mother had shipped from Memphis. The three of them sat around Jake's living room, watching classic Christmas movies and talking about everything and nothing. "This is nice," Emma said, leaning against Marcus on the couch. "Simple. Real." Jake agreed. After the chaos of the past month, simple and real felt like luxury. The new year arrived with cold rain and renewed purpose. Jake threw himself into preparing for Reba's spring tour, coordinating with her tour manager, researching bus maintenance facilities along the route, creating contingency plans for mechanical emergencies. The work was challenging but fulfilling. He was building something, creating systems that would keep people safe and operations running smoothly. It reminded him why he'd fallen in love with mechanics in the first place. The satisfaction of solving problems, of being the person people could rely on when things went wrong. Late January brought the trial date for Derek Hastings. The news covered it extensively. Prominent businessman facing multiple fraud charges, former employees testifying against him. Jake watched some of the coverage, saw Tommy on the courthouse steps looking pale and nervous, flanked by Gerald Patterson. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Falsified records, fraudulent insurance claims, testimony from dozens of cheated customers. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Derek Hastings was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay over $600,000 in restitution. Jake felt no satisfaction watching the sentencing, just sadness for all the wasted potential, all the lives damaged by one man's greed. Tommy called him that evening. "It's over. He's going to prison. How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I'm relieved. I kept thinking they'd find some way to charge me too, even though I had immunity. But now it's really done." He paused. "I got a job offer. Small independent shop in Franklin. The owner knows my situation, doesn't care, says everyone deserves a second chance." "That's wonderful, Tommy. Congratulations. I won't screw it up this time, I promise." "I know you won't." February brought warmer weather and the start of Reba's tour preparations. Jake traveled to California to inspect her vehicles there, a Tesla and a vintage pickup truck stored at her Malibu property. The work was straightforward, but being in California felt surreal. He, a mechanic from Nashville, standing on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, working on vehicles owned by one of country music's biggest stars. How had his life become this? He returned to Nashville in early March, just as spring was beginning to assert itself. The property's trees were budding, early flowers pushing through the soil. Luis was busy with planting, transforming winter's barrenness into approaching beauty. "You look different," Luis observed one morning as they shared coffee at the garage. "Different how?" "Lighter. When you started, you carried weight. Now, less weight." Jake considered this. "Maybe I'm just getting used to the work. Maybe. Or maybe you're learning to accept good things when they come." The spring tour launched in mid-March. Reba's tour bus, a custom Prevost converted into luxury accommodations, had received Jake's full attention for weeks. He'd inspected every system, replaced questionable components, created a maintenance manual that detailed every specification. On opening night in Dallas, Reba sent him a photo of herself on stage, the crowd a sea of faces and phone lights. The text read, "Bus ran perfectly. 0 issues. You're a miracle worker." Jake smiled and typed back, "Just doing my job. You do it exceptionally well. Thank you." April brought Emma's graduation approaching. She'd been accepted to a graduate program in mechanical engineering at MIT, an achievement that left Jake bursting with pride and slightly terrified about out-of-state tuition. They were discussing finances at his kitchen table one evening when Emma said, "Dad, I need to tell you something. I applied for a fellowship. It's competitive. Only 5 students from across the country get selected. But if I get it, full tuition, plus a stipend." "That's amazing! When do you find out?" "Next week. But, Dad, there's something else. Marcus applied to MIT, too. We'd be going together." Jake set down his coffee mug. "You're planning your future around a boyfriend? I'm planning my future around a partner. There's a difference. And MIT is the best program for both of us. It's not like I'm compromising my goals. I'm pursuing them with someone I love." The word love hung in the air. Jake realized his daughter had grown into someone who made thoughtful decisions, who understood the difference between compromise and sacrifice, who was brave enough to build a life that included both professional ambition and personal connection. "Then I hope you both get in," he said finally. "You're not upset?" "I'm terrified. You'll be across the country. But that's my problem, not yours. You're supposed to fly away and build your own life. That's what I've been working toward your whole life." Emma hugged him tightly. "You're the best dad." "I try." The following week, Emma got the fellowship, and Marcus got accepted to MIT. They celebrated at the Hermitage Cafe, Jake's treat, with pancakes at midnight and coffee that could strip paint. To the next chapter, Marcus toasted, raising his coffee mug. They all clinked mugs, and Jake tried not to think about how empty his house would be come September. May brought Reba's return from tour, sunburned and exhausted and happy. The tour had been a massive success, breaking attendance records and grossing millions. But what she talked about most was the people. Fans who'd driven hours to see her, crew members who'd become family, moments of connection that transcended business. "This is why I do it," she said, sitting in Jake's garage office while he worked on maintenance reports. "Not the money or fame. The moments when someone tells you that one of your songs got them through a divorce or helped them cope with loss. That's the real reward." Jake understood that sentiment. His reward wasn't the salary, though that certainly helped, but the satisfaction of knowing Reba's vehicles were safe, reliable, maintained with care, that he'd built something trustworthy. "I have a proposal," Reba said, "and I want you to really think about it before answering." "Okay. I want to sponsor Emma's graduate program. Full tuition, living expenses, everything. As a gift." Jake's first instinct was to refuse, pride rising up, refusing charity. But Reba held up a hand. "Before you say no, let me explain. You helped me when I was stranded. You've worked tirelessly to maintain my vehicles and give me peace of mind. You've become someone I trust completely. This isn't charity. It's me investing in the daughter of someone valuable to me. Let me do this." "Reba, that's too much. Graduate school at MIT could cost—" "I know what it costs. And I can afford it without blinking. But more than that, I want to. Emma is brilliant, hard-working, and she's going to do amazing things. Let me help make that possible." Jake struggled with the offer, pride warring with practicality. Finally, he said, "Can I talk to Emma about it first?" "Of course." Emma's response, when he called her, was immediate and emotional. "Dad, are you serious? She wants to pay for grad school?" "She does. But I wanted to make sure you're comfortable with it. Taking money from my employer feels complicated. Dad, you helped her when she needed it. Now she's helping us. That's not complicated. That's kindness coming full circle. Accept it. Please." So he did. And when he told Reba, she smiled like he'd given her a gift rather than accepted one. June brought Emma's undergraduate graduation. A sunny day filled with ceremony, achievement, and bittersweet farewells. Jake sat in the audience at Vanderbilt Stadium, watching his daughter cross the stage to receive her engineering degree, and felt his throat tighten with emotion. She'd done it. Against odds, through challenges, with determination and brilliance, she'd done it. Reba had sent flowers to Emma's apartment, a massive arrangement with a card that read, "Congratulations on your achievement. The future is bright." Reba Emma had nearly cried when they arrived. The graduation party was small, just family and close friends at Jake's house. Marcus's parents drove up from Memphis, warm and welcoming people who treated Jake like extended family. They talked about their children's futures, the challenges of letting go, the pride that came with watching your kids succeed. "You raised a remarkable young woman," Marcus's father David said. "That takes dedication. I just tried not to screw up too badly. That's all any parent can do." As summer progressed, Jake found himself settling into a rhythm that felt almost like permanence. Work during the day, dinner with Emma when she was free, weekends spent on the property maintaining vehicles, and occasionally having coffee with Luis. Reba was planning another tour for fall, a shorter run, regional dates. She'd asked Jake to come along as tour mechanic, traveling with the crew, handling mechanical issues as they arose. He'd said yes. It was time to expand his comfort zone, to embrace new experiences, to stop being so afraid of change. August brought moving day. Jake helped Emma and Marcus load a U-Haul with their belongings, their whole lives packed into boxes and furniture. The drive to Massachusetts would take 2 days, and Jake was going with them. Partly to help, mostly to delay saying goodbye. They drove through Tennessee, Virginia, Pennsylvania, following highways that carried them away from everything familiar. Emma and Marcus took turns driving, talking about their plans, their excitement, their nerves about starting graduate school. Jake mostly listened, memorizing his daughter's voice, her laugh, the way she gestured when explaining complex engineering concepts. Boston welcomed them with humidity and traffic. MIT's campus was impressive. Modern buildings mixed with historic architecture, students everywhere carrying the intensity of people pursuing difficult goals. Emma's apartment was small but functional. A 2-bedroom in Cambridge that she'd share with a roommate, while Marcus lived nearby with friends from his undergraduate program. They spent the day unpacking, assembling furniture, turning an empty space into something resembling home. That evening, Jake took Emma and Marcus to dinner at an Italian restaurant near campus. Over pasta and wine, Emma was 21 now, legally allowed. They talked about the future. "Promise me you'll call regularly," Jake said. "Not just texts, actual calls where I can hear your voice." "I promise, Dad. And don't overwork yourself. Graduate school is important, but not more important than your health and happiness." "I won't. And remember that you can always come home. If it gets too hard or too stressful, or you just need a break, my door is always open." Emma reached across the table and took his hand. "I know, Dad, but I'm ready for this. You made me ready." The next morning, Jake hugged his daughter goodbye in front of her apartment building. Marcus discreetly gave them space, understanding that this moment belonged to father and daughter alone. "I'm so proud of you," Jake said. "Every single day, I'm proud of you." "I love you, Dad. I love you too, Em. So much." He drove back to Nashville alone. The U-Haul returned, his truck feeling empty despite the music playing on the radio. It was a long drive, over 13 hours, and he had plenty of time to think about endings and beginnings, about chapters closing and new ones opening. His life had been defined by being Emma's father for 21 years. Now she was launching into her own orbit, and he had to figure out who Jake Morrison was when he was primarily himself. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. He arrived back in Nashville late evening, exhausted emotionally more than physically. His house felt empty, quiet in a way it never had before. But his phone buzzed almost immediately. A text from Reba. "Welcome home. Coffee tomorrow morning? I have some ideas I want to run by you." Jake smiled and typed back, 9 a.m.? Perfect. See you then. He went to bed in his empty house, listening to silence where Emma's presence had been, and thought about the strange journey that had brought him here. Fired from one job, hired for another, helping a stranger in a storm, being helped in return, watching his daughter grow and leave, accepting that this was the natural order of things. Life wasn't a straight line. It was messy, complicated, full of unexpected turns. But sometimes, if you were lucky and willing to take chances, those turns led somewhere better than you'd imagined. The next morning, Jake met Reba at her house. She had coffee ready and something else, a folder thick with documents. "I've been thinking," she said, settling onto the couch in her living room, "about expanding operations. I want to start a vehicle restoration business, high-end classic cars, meticulous work, the kind of quality that's becoming rare. And I want you to run it." Jake stared at her. "Run it?" "As partner. I provide the capital and facility. You provide the expertise and management. We split profits 60-40. My 60 covering the initial investment. Your 40 rewarding the work. After 5 years, it goes 50-50. Reba, that's an opportunity for both of us. I get a business venture in something I'm passionate about. You get autonomy, creative control, and equity in something you help build." Jake's mind raced. Running his own business had always been a distant dream, something he'd fantasized about but never seriously pursued. Now, Reba was offering to make it reality. "Why me?" "Because you're talented, trustworthy, and you understand that quality matters more than speed. Because I've watched you work for 6 months now, and everything you touch becomes better. Because I trust you." She leaned forward. "Jake, you helped me when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Now, I'm offering you something that could change your life. Say yes." Jake thought about Derek Hastings, who'd built a business on fraud and shortcuts. He thought about Elite Auto Works, now permanently closed, its reputation destroyed. He thought about doing things right, building something that would last, creating value through honest work. "Yes," he said. "I'm in." Reba's smile was radiant. "Then let's get started." The months that followed were intense. They found a property in East Nashville, an old warehouse that needed renovation but had good bones. They hired contractors, designed the space, ordered equipment. Jake consulted with restoration experts, researched techniques, created business plans. By December, Morrison and McEntire Classic Restorations opened its doors. The facility was beautiful. 6 bays equipped for meticulous work, a showroom for displaying completed projects, an office where Jake could manage operations. Their first customer brought in a 1970 Mustang Boss 429 that had been sitting in a barn for 30 years. The owner wanted it restored to factory specifications. Cost be damned. It was exactly the kind of project Jake had dreamed of working on. "Take your time," the owner said. "Do it right. That's all I care about." Jake assembled a small team. Tommy Brennan, whose second chance had turned into legitimate talent. A young woman named Lisa Chen, who specialized in paint and bodywork. An older mechanic named Raymond Foster, who'd been restoring classics for 40 years. Together, they began the slow, meticulous process of bringing the Mustang back to life. Emma called regularly from MIT, full of stories about her research, her classes, her life with Marcus. She sounded happy, challenged, thriving. Exactly what Jake had always wanted for her. Reba continued touring, recording, being the superstar she'd always been. But now she had a business venture that excited her. Something tangible she could point to and say, "I helped build that." And Jake? Jake finally understood what Reba had meant about being happy rather than just content. He had work he loved, people who trusted him, equity in something he was building. He had a daughter who called him regularly with stories about her successes. He had friends, Luis, Tommy, even Reba herself, who valued him for who he was rather than what he could provide. 1 year after being fired from Elite Auto Works, Jake Morrison stood in his restoration shop, watching winter sunlight stream through the high windows, illuminating the Mustang they were bringing back to life, and realized something profound. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you opens the door to the best thing that could happen. Sometimes, helping a stranger in a storm changes everything. Sometimes doing the right thing, even when it costs you, leads to rewards you never imagined. He picked up his tools and got back to work, building something that would last, one careful repair at a time.